Hello everyone. This video is for the ERD and the data dictionary of Project 1. So this is the guidance of Project 1. The ERD should depend on the business rules here. Basically, you should have three entities in that ERD. First is a student entity and then an activity entity. Since there is a minute-to-minute relationship between students and activity, when students can participate in many activities, while an activity can be selected by many students, we need another composite bridge associative entity to split this many-to-many relationship into two one-to-many relationships, because as we already know, the many-to-many relationship cannot be directly implemented in MySQL Workbench. So here the first ERD is the student. Prime key should be student ID. So this is prime key. Of course, the value of a prime key attribute should not be null, so it's not null. And it should be on site because for ID, we don't allow any negative number. Some other non-prime attributes in the student entity student table could include like student first name, student last name, and student notes. This student note is an optional attribute, so you don't need to set it as not null. It can be null. Okay, that's for the student table. And the second entity should be the activity. Prime key is activity ID. The data type, you can set it as int. And if it is an int, yeah, it's a prime key attribute, cannot be null, and it should be set as onside because we don't allow any negative number in an ID thing, and it should be auto increment. Some other non-prime attributes could include activity name and activity cost. This one, the data type should be decimal 52, which means for the activity cost, you can have you can have in total 5 digits, but you can only have like 2 digits after the decimal point. And also activity start date. This is a date data type. Activity end date. And activity notes. This is again an optional attribute. Okay, now we have the student entities and the activity entity. We need to create a composite entity between them. So we can call it participant. And for this composite entity, it should have a composite primary key, which includes both primary key from its related tables. So the primary key is student ID and activity ID. So these two attributes together serve as the primary key of this composite entity participate. Okay, so since we set student ID and activity ID as onsite in the student table and activity table, respectively, we need to also set them as onsite here. So remember, the data type and the column flag you set should be consistent, which means if you use like onsite here, you should also use onsite here. If you don't use onsite here, and then you don't use onsite here for the student ID in the participate table. The reason is student ID and activity ID, those two attributes in the participate table, serve as first part of the primary key of the participate table, and also the foreign key to maintain 2-1-2 relationships between student and participants, also the activity between participants. So this student ID is also a foreign key to maintain later the 1-2 manner relationship between student and participant. Then of course the attribute name, the data type, and the column flag you select must be consistent with what you used here for the student ID in the students table. And auto increment, since this column flag only works for single attribute primary key, so you don't need to set them as auto increment here for the for those two primary key attributes in the participate table. Okay, then we have some other attributes in the participate table include participate start date. Again, this should be a date, data type, and participate end date. And the last one is participate notes. This is again an optional attribute. You don't need to set it as you don't need to set it as not null here. So now we have three tables, three entities for the project. For project 1, actually, those are all attributes. Those are all entities you should have. And then we need to create those two 1-2 many relationship, right? So for the 1-2 many relationship between students and participate, the student ID in the participate table is a foreign key. So we first click this student ID in the participate table, and then the student ID in the student table. So as you can see, this is a 1-2 many relationship. So we can add a relationship name here. So one student can enroll as participate. The minimum and maximum cardinality here is 1 to 1. And the minimum and maximum cardinality here of the participate side in this relationship is 1 and many. And similarly, for the one-to-many relationship between activity and participate, we first click the foreign key, the activity ID in the participate table, and then the activity ID in the activity table. So this is another one-to-many relationship. So we can add a relationship name, says selected by. Okay, so that's all for those three entities. And I remember, according to the requirements, you should also have data records in some data records in each table. So 5 records in the student table, 5 records in the activity table, and 10 records in the participant table. So you can, and actually you should, make up the data records by yourself, but you can also use what I'm using here. I don't mind. Okay, so the student table here, go to the Insert tab. You should have 5 records here, 5 students. Let's say student 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And first student, John Smith. This student note, since it is an optional attribute, if you don't want to put anything there, it's okay. And second student, Jen Box. John Roger. And let's mark and say Anthony. Okay, those are the 5 student records. And don't remember to apply changes here. Otherwise, what you just insert into will not be saved. And then the activity table, you should also have 5 data records here, right? So go to the Insert tab. Let me see, 2, 3, 4, 5. First one is the golf. Cost 47. Start date. Okay, so for date, I think you know. So there is certain format you should use for data type. So what you insert into the date field must be year hyphen month hyphen date. You cannot use other format. Let me say like this 2009 January 1st. It cannot be like a January 1st and then 2009. Okay, the end date. Next one Okay, so that's all for the activity table, for the activity entity. Again, don't remember to apply changes here. So then we have this participate table. So you should have 10. Yeah, is it? Yeah, you should have at least 10 records in the participate table. So since this is a composite entity, so the combination of student ID and activity ID is the prime key for this entity. So as long as the value of this combination is unique, what you have inserted into is correct. So which means you can have like a one, and 1, 2. That's okay. As long as this combination is unique, it's okay. So let's say the first one, start date is since I have students 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the student table, and then I have activity 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the activity table. So you can use like any number from those 5 numbers in each column here. So you can use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. But you cannot use like 6, 7, 8, those numbers, because that will violate the referential integrity. So there is no like student, there is no student 6, student 7 in the students table, and there is no activity 6, 7 in the activity table. Again, so I can have a 5 here because I have activity 5, but I cannot have a 6 here because I don't have activity 6 in the activity table. Okay, how many do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, yeah, now I have 10. So again, let me emphasize this key point a little bit. So the combination should be unique, the value. So which means you can have like 5, 2, 5, 3, but you cannot have like 5, 3 twice. The next one you should have, you can have is like either 5 or 1 or 5, 4 or 5, 5. Okay, don't forget to apply changes. And also when you are editing the data records, you can only have, for each table, you can only have one, no more than one of this kind of or no data record in any table. So if you have like 2, if you have 2 or no data records, later you will have problem in forward engineer process. What you need to do is to delete one row. Otherwise, the MySQL Workbench will consider you are still editing one of the or no data records. So then it will like it will consider you miss a primary key value in one of those 2 or no data records. Anyway, so you can only have like one row like this. Okay, so I think the requirement says yeah, must forward engineer. Yeah, otherwise, I don't think you can do the query part. To forward engineer, so first step is to change the schema name to your FSID. This is also your database name on the server. And then go to this database forward engineer and select the CCI student connection. I think everyone has set up this connection for long. Okay, so then click continue. Here generate insert statements for tables, drop objects before each create object, generate drop schema, and add show warnings after every DDL statement. Okay, so if you see this window says forward engineer finished successfully, this means you have already forward engineered those tables and data records into your database on the server. For example, if I now check my database. Okay, I have those 3 tables, right? And if I select everything from the student table, those are the 5 data records I have added to the student table. Okay, so this is the ERD part. Again, for the data records, you can use what you want. You don't need to like follow what I have done in the insert data records part. But if you want to, you can follow what I just did. So this is the student table, and this is the participation table. This is also for the composite entity participate, and this is activity table for the activity entity. Okay, so that's all for the ERD, and I think you should, it says you should create a data dictionary, use Excel, and table names must include colors. I think you need to use different colors for each table. So this is what I have just created. So this is exactly the same as the answer actually. So I want to explain some fields here a little bit. So the first column is table name. We just have 3 tables, and attribute names, the content for each attribute, and data type. So you can use other data type if you want, but then you need to check the domain, especially if for int. If for data type in the int family, so the domain will be different. For example, if you use a small int or tiny int, and if it is a required attribute or not, and if it is a primary key attribute or foreign key attribute, and if it is a foreign key attribute, which table it links to. Okay, so I think the table name, attribute name, contents type, you should not have any problem. So format is what a piece of data for this attribute should look like. For example, if it's a ID, it's a number, right? The format is a number. And if it's first name, last name, or activity names, that's a string. So it's like ABC, that's kind of thing. And if it is a date, the format should be, as I said, year-month-day. And if it is a decimal, according to the content here, it's decimal 52, which means you can have you can have 3 digits before the decimal point and then 2 digits after the decimal point. This is how a piece of data for this activity cost will look like. And domain is what are some of the symbols, numbers, and letters you allowed in the value of this attribute. So for the ID thing, like student ID, activity ID, since I set them as int, so according to the data range of int family, if it is int, and if it is unsigned int, this is a maximum number of an unsigned int. That's the reason the domain is 0 to this number. So if you use a small int or tiny int, it's okay. Actually, I think small int and tiny int make more sense. Probably we don't need this number to be this large. So if you use tiny int, unsigned tiny int, the maximum number is 255. If you use unsigned small int, and this is the maximum number, so which means you need to change the domain a little bit. And for the last name, first name, activity name, so for a name, we should only allow A, B, C, D, those kind of letters in names, right? So that's the reason why A to Z is a domain for student first name, so that's for student last name and activity names. And for date, yes, you can only use number, right? You cannot have any like letters or symbols in a date. So you can only use like 0 to 9. And for decimal 52, as I said, you can have 3 digits before the decimal point and then 2 digits after it. So it does not allow negative numbers. So the minimum is 0 and maximum is 999.99. Okay, so this is the domain of this decimal 52. And for student notes, since it's virtual 225 and there's, I think you can put everything almost in the notes, so you don't need to like specify the format and domain. And most attributes here are required attributes except those nodes attributes. And student ID is a perma key in student table. Activity ID is perma key in the student in the activity table. Sorry, and the student ID and activity ID in the participate table are both part of the perma key and also the foreign key. So you should mark them as PK and FK, both perma key and also foreign key. And the first one, the first student ID, links to the student table, of course, and the second, the activity ID, links to the activity table. So yeah, that's all for the data dictionary. Your data dictionary should look like this. Probably let me change the table name a little bit, because you are only supposed to use lowercase letters. Okay, this is your data dictionary, and this is your ERD. So please save this one as an MWB file, P1 MWB to somewhere you can find later. And also this one, you should save it as an Excel file. Yeah, Project 1 Data Dictionary. And that's all for the first 2 parts in Project 1, the ERD and data dictionary. Those 2 are 70 points, and you still have like 30 points for the SQL statements part. So I will not like go through this part because I cannot give you answer directly. So make sure you have this MWB file and also this Excel file. Those are for the first 2 parts for Project 1. Okay, so that's all for this video. So you can have, I think you have like 2 attempts for Project 1. So if you have already finished and submitted Project 1 and you want to redo it according to this video, you can still do that. I will create the latest copy you submit. Okay, thank you.